Hi everyone, this is Becky with SkillsU. In this video, we're going to talk about primary and secondary sources. So what is a primary source? Primary means first or first-hand. In historical events, a primary source is someone who was there and experienced it firsthand. They may write notes, letters, or take photographs of the event as it is happening. These would all be primary sources because they were created during the time of the event. An interview would also be a primary source. Even if the interview was not conducted during the event, it would still be a primary source. As long as the person being interviewed experienced the event firsthand, it would be considered a primary source. Let's say you interview a man who attended the inaugural speech of George Bush. Even though this happened many years ago, because the man experienced the speech firsthand, your interview would be a primary source. Other primary sources could include newspaper articles, autobiographies, maps, government records, arts, and film. As long as the source is from the time of the event or is from someone who experienced it firsthand, it is a primary source. Even if it is a photocopy of the primary source, it's still considered valid. So what is a secondary source? Secondary means after first. Secondary sources mean they were created after the historical event. If someone does research and writes an article many years after the event has occurred, this will be a secondary source. Secondary sources usually get their information from primary sources. Notice when the article is written. If time has passed since the event, you are most likely looking at a secondary source. Some examples of secondary sources could include books, biographies, articles, dissertations, websites, or documentary films. Okay, so let's test your knowledge. Let's say we have letters written by a Holocaust survivor that were published in a book in 1997. Would this be a primary or secondary source? If you said primary source, you are correct. The letters were written by someone who had a first-hand account. The author simply compiled the letters together in a book. What about a website created in 2001 telling all about the life and times of George Washington? This is an example of a secondary source. In order for the website to be accurate, the creator would have had to use primary sources to compile his or her information. You can look for the primary sources used in the reference section. What about a photocopy of a newspaper printed during the Civil Rights Movement discussing the assassination of Martin Luther King? This is an example of a primary source. Even though it is a photocopy, the original newspaper is a primary source because it was printed in the correct time frame. Okay, so there you have a quick lesson on primary and secondary sources. Thanks for watching.